So here we are. 4 students are getting the axe. 6 organizations are getting the axe for standing up this semester and for fighting for these things. They're getting the axe not for what they did, but for what we have done. They spoke for us. They were part of us. They have been singled out, and they're going to be chopped off.
We were told the following: if President Kerr actually tried to get something more liberal out of the regents in his telephone conversations, why didn't he make some public statement to that effect? And the answer we received from a well-meaning liberal was the following. He said, would you ever imagine the manager of a firm making a statement publicly in opposition to his board of directors? That's the answer. Well, I ask you to consider, if this is a firm, and if the Board of Regents are the Board of Directors, and if President Kerr, in fact, is the manager, then I tell you something, the faculty are a bunch of employees, and we're the raw materials. But we're a bunch of raw materials that don't mean to have any process upon us, don't mean to be made into any product, don't mean to end up being bought by some clients of the university, be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone. We're human beings. There's a time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Hi folks, and welcome to another video from aplaintruth.info. Today is August 8th, 2017. And I wanted to be giving a heads up to this new meme they're bringing out, and you can see the slow boil they're doing on it. We'll get into that in a little bit. But this was an article in the New York Times as of 2 days ago, August 4th. Front page, left-hand column, New York Times printed section, so you know it's important when they put it front page, left time. Journal of record, the New York Times. Everything fit to print, so they say, but it's what people read, pay attention as intellectuals, and this is how they program the masses, so I just want to get into it. So behind Berkeley's semester of hate, talking about UC Berkeley, when far left meets far right, sparks fly, students from both sides discuss their political burnings.
Standing around, not doing anything. Look at them. There's a number of riot cops here. There's clashes and fights and people getting seriously hurt and injured, but these guys are just standing there. Why are they standing there, not doing anything? There's those guys, and there's people getting seriously hurt over there. Like, this is insane. This is nuts. It makes no sense at all. I guess they want this to happen. I guess this is their bigger plan of divide and conquer, or just letting the situation get out of hand. As we're gonna go over there and show you the craziness that's happening. Again, this is Luke Radowski of WeAreChange.org, reporting to you live as real independent media, supported on patreon.com/WeAreChange if you want to see it grow, if you want to see it expanded. Again, more fist fights, more clashes happening right now. Look at it. Look at it.
And fireworks into the crowd.
This situation is totally out of hand.
We get more rocks getting thrown, more glass, people getting severely hurt. And AntiFa is deploying their usual techniques. They also have bear maces. You saw the lady who was pepper sprayed there. A lot of people have been bloodied. Hey, how you guys doing? Pleasure. Love you guys. Pleasure.
More fireworks by Antifa. Police just standing there, for God's sake. The pro-Trump people, the pro-free speech are not backing down. Rocks are being pelted against each other. This is insane. Again, Follow for more on youtube.com/wearechange, youtube.com/wearechange. More live coverage. We do live videos also on facebook.com/wearechange.org. Stay tuned. Subscribe. This is only the beginning here.
Hey, how you guys doing? Pleasure. Love you guys. Pleasure.
And here they're burning some boxes, and it says, "Kill Nazis." Okay, you get that? All in black, head covers. Guys taking pictures, standing around. These guys got their backs with head covers on, just standing around. And this is the cover that you see, and they're protesting a right-wing speaker supposedly coming to Berkeley. So here's how it gets into it, and this is how they do the programming, so I want to give the language how they do it. UC Berkeley challenged liberal presumptions about who exactly the good guys were. Anti-Fascists or Antifa, get it? Antifa is their new meme they're coming out with, the new word, anti-fascist, clad like ninjas and hell-bent on silencing a speaker, smashed windows and set fires. They clashes with right-wingers erupted again at rallies in March and April in support of free speech, and a messy pepper spray mosh pit, as one fascist described it. The Antifa collective, fueled by an emboldened right wing, has become a growing subculture, particularly in the West Coast campuses. We'll get into Santa Cruz, what they're pretending they're doing down there.
Entire campus building. It's happening right now at UC Santa Cruz. They're demanding more housing and resources for African-American students. NBC Bay Area's Robert Honda joins us live from campus to tell us what's happening behind the barricades. Robert.
Well, Janelle, protesters have vowed to stay until their demands are met. Now, sources tell me no police action is planned, so it appears protesters will be able to stay at least until they meet with the chancellor tomorrow. The blunt signs posted at Kerr Hall were the only public messages from protesters for most of the day. Through social media, the African Black Student Alliance asked for supporters to show up and volunteer. We saw about 20 allowed inside. A spokeswoman who declined to give her name says the group is growing in numbers and determination.
There is between 100 to 200 students in there.
The group is demanding, among many things, the university buy property for low-income housing to be run by the Alliance. Demands also included housing guarantees for what protesters called all African, Black, Caribbean identified students at one complex, and mandatory diversity training for freshmen and incoming students. The protesters declined to elaborate except to read a statement. Part of it?
First, we would like to acknowledge that this is not our land, that this is the land of indigenous people. In recognition of the settler colonialism, we are using the word reclaim instead of occupy.
The university's vice chancellor and other officials met students at Kerr Hall and took a walk to discuss the issues. No progress was reported, but protesters remain optimistic.
The enthusiasm level is wonderful. We're all doing good. We're good.
And protesters say they have shortened their list of demands that were already rejected by the chancellor last month. A university spokesman says the college is determined to keep up the talks, and their top priority is safety for everyone involved. At UC Santa Cruz, Robert Honda, NBC Bay Area News.
But this is all being made up, and also UC Berkeley UC Davis last year with the pepper spray incidences with the cops. You all remember that incident. So this is all about them priming the pump even further. So fearful of being doxxed, never heard that word before, having your personal information posted online, you're being doxxed by, quote, alt-right trolls. This is the New York Times speaking and writing, whoever took English. Anti-fascists are cautious about their identity. Ooh. Many protest as a black bloc, new term, a tactic ascribed to the 1980s Germany, here we connection to Germany, which a group protests anonymously. Here's anonymous. Faces concealed by t-shirts, bandanas, and masks to avoid detection and protect them from pepper spray.
UC Davis, if you don't, we're going to show it to you in a second. Kids were protesting there, and the cops decided to pepper spray them. You know, this is in the midst of the Occupy movement. Everybody's getting pepper sprayed. This was a particularly egregious case because obviously the students were not presenting any kind of threat to the cops, as you'll see in a minute. They said that they had to do the pepper spray because they had to, quote, break through a hostile crowd. John Bucket is an attorney for the Campus Police Officers Union, and so he said, I believe all the officers exercised quite a bit of restraint under the circumstances.
Antifa is actually more label than organization. Who's labeling? Who's organization? It's believers connected by calls to action on websites like It's Going Down. Anarchist, communist, or just liberal. Get that? Anarchist, communist, or just liberal. They oppose fascism with militant zeal. But some formalize into affinity groups like the... Okay, you ready for the new meme? It's the new color meme. It's the Pastel Bloc. Dressed in pastels. Oh, they're so colorful. A play on the head-to-toe uniform of Black Bloc. They offer medical attention during protests. Yay, for the Pastel Bloc. But the Black Bloc is often seen as mostly white males. Ooh, categorized, label. Looking to wreak havoc for their cause. New York Times, folks. New York Times. All right, so here's an example of an Antifa black standing tall, proud in front of the building. I'm not afraid. Neil Lawrence, Antifa, and linguistics major. He knows how to talk. He's an Antifa. So when the nonviolent tactics have been exhausted, what is left for the limousine liberals going to berserkly and getting in massive debt and having no jobs when they come out? What is up for these people? So the Antifa wanted to show up in mass to demonstrate opposition at an alt-right free speech rally. Announcements on flyers from campus called for a Defend the Bay Bloc Party. Now we got the Bay Bloc Party. We got Black Bloc, Pastel Bloc. Now we got the Bay Bloc Party and cookout. We got to eat. With a request to bring friends a mask. Wait, bring friends. Bring a mask, BYO mask, and food to share if you can. But Mr. Lawrence said, Mr. Antifa member, nobody wanted a street fight. We're having a cookout. But when the Antifa got there, some with makeshift weapons. Oh no, it's a rubber band slingshots. And an M80 firecrackers. Oh my gosh. Fighting broke out, and each side blames the other. I'm only 5'2", sir. What can I do? But he argues that whatever you can do to throw a wrench in the gears is valuable. That's a reference to Mario Savio, says we had to put the gears in the wrenches of the Vietnam War. Completely different narrative. That guy was real. So anyway, this thing just keeps going on, building the Antifa theme. But here it gets into the connection. Remember, we had the 1980s movement. Now they're connecting to 1964 in Sproul Plaza at the UC Berkeley. And now a pretty big part of me is feeling safe on my campus. It doesn't seem crazy to say is that there not be any Nazis here. So now they're connecting it to the Nazis. And you can see how this keeps going. Oh, another Antifa member with his red mask, and trans lives matter, and black lives matter, and all lives matter. Let me care for them all, and I'm willing to fight and go to battle with these these right-wingers for everybody's rights. People need to understand this whole thing, this conflict, isn't about free speech. So here they bring in the Muslims, dissents, and here they're bringing in everybody. Trump campaign rally. Here we go against Trump and the right-wingers. Here the Antifa. He predicts more violence for the new school year. Yiannopoulos has announced a week-long tent city in Sproul Plaza. Ooh, who's going to fight who? Vowing in Facebook to bring an army if I have to this September, folks. And here you see the book, and this is Nathan D'Amigo, who said he punched a woman and is proud of it. Race in the 21st Century he has on here, his computer. And serve your people, defend something, and he's got some Tabasco sauce here, little meme being set into your head. So this is Nathan Domingo was caught on a video punching a woman in the face, and he's not apologizing for it. New York Times. I feel that I was completely within reason. Here he is doing his race in the 21st century. We are organized people to put pressure on the institutions to engage us in dialogue, to challenge their students to greater exposure to ideas that are censoring on campus, blah, blah, blah. When school resumes, Mr. D'Amago plans to step it up by setting tables on campuses with Identity Evropa t-shirts and banners. And at UC Berkeley, he laughed, we got some plans. So you see how they're setting this all up? We're going to come there with more of our right-wing speakers, Mr. Women punching, race in the 21st century, Antifa, left, liberal, communist, whatever is going to be there too. So this is all part of their meme. But let's go back to the history of this stuff. And here you can go back. This is April 18th, 2017. Now this article in the New York Times was just the other day. What is Antifa, and why is the media so reluctant to expose it? Here's your conservative review. They're setting the memes, folks. This was April 15th after the Coulter thing in Berkeley. And now you got this guy here. You've got Freedom Bank. He's got the flag backwards. Supposedly this guy's bleeding from the head, and it's spilled on the Stop Liberal Intolerance. And a couple guys in helmets in the background. This guy's, protecting himself from UV. And then we got the spleef guy over here, Real Leaf and stuff. All the little memes are being put in front of us. So are all Trump supporters violent white supremacists? That's how they start this article in the Conservative Review. Berkeley during a speech from Trump backers while the opposition are simply opposing fascism. Remember Antifa. Rocks were thrown, sticks and skateboards were used to beat people. I'm going to show you a little bit of that in the Luke Rudusky ridiculous, or maybe we'll get into that now. Let's look at Luke Rudusky, who's supposedly Mr. Alt News with Alex Jones, reporting on all the violent action at Berkeley during this event they said was throwing rocks and sticks and skateboards. Let's take a look. So now we have the Los Angeles Times report on the fighting as well. A citizen militia group organizing from Montana came to the rally. I don't mind hitting, the counter-demonstrator said. One man tells the Times, in fact, I kind of enjoy it. Let's hit people. The message is clear. Right, we're looking for trouble, and those on the left responded. Just who are the groups involved? Now they get to tell you who's involved here on there. On one hand, you have the racist white nationalists in support of Trump. This is true. They're telling you that's true. But by no means was every Trump backer at this rally, here we go, for free speech, a violent neo-Nazi. Labeling, a violent neo-Nazi. So they're bringing in the Germans. We've had the Russians. We got the Syrians we're bombing the shit out of the other day. That should be an article everybody should read. No one's paying attention. The European hot wave, the Luciferian heat wave on top of everything else. But now we got to bring in the Germans and the Nazis. See how they're creating conflict everywhere? So San Francisco Chronicle reported several liberal groups were there to counter the protest in opposition to Trump. These were not just milquetoast, never heard that one before, liberals, milquetoast liberals. They were to oppose a president they don't like. The Los Angeles Times notes in a different piece, officials raised concerns about the militant black bloc, here we go, of anti-fascist, Antifa for short, rioters. First time they've mentioned Antifa since the head roll. But don't take the term anti-fascist on its value as mainstream media is wont to do. Understand who these people are. They're made up of self-described anarchist, radical left-wing thugs who employ violence and intimidation to advance their beliefs. Do the math. They've shown up previously at Berkeley to shut down a free speech. They also violently disrupted a March 4th Trump event in March. But you aren't hearing much about Antifa violence as you are about the left alt-right. Well, let's ask Luke Rudusky anymore. Again, if the violence is so bad. Luke, back to you, Luke. So then we ask Esquire magazine and Antifa rioters are noble, anti-racist counter-demonstrators, a sort of Justice League vigilante group dedicated to shutting down fascist protest. Here we go again. But this is a radical movement that traces its roots back to World War II, as Mother Jones recounts, in the long history of Nazi punching. Get that? Nazi punching. One might say Antifa's violent tactics employed around the world are fascist. And then here we get a quote from National Review's David French explained about the Yiannopoulos Berkeley event. The rioters break people and destroy things, then melt back into the crowd and quickly and purposely closes behind them. They're typically cheered wildly to be sure some yell at them to stop, and often treated as heroes by the rest of the mob. The Battle of Berkeley, or some are calling it. Really? The majority of the MSN's intense focus is applied to white national groups, while Antifa is being cast in a heroic opposed to the alt-right violence, blah, blah, blah. And then if we go to here, this article, we can see the history even further back. This is back in the local, and you can see the date here. It is April 30th, 2010. 2010, up in the Antifa leftist riots feared for May Day, and it brings in the whole German authorities, May Day, the traditional Maypole day of the Illuminati. Maybe a punch in the face. Okay, he's lying on the ground. That's enough. Violence, 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 promoting it. So we also get it being promoted here now on July 7th. 5 reasons I'm not worried about the Antifa. And this is a liberal place. And here's a girl here supposedly an Anti-Fa member with her hands across, looking kind of like, hey, I'm kind of dejected. Here's my top 5 reasons and the power in charge of Anti-Fa. Here's some kids crying, and here's somebody being punched in the face, leadership, dependency. Anti-Fa begs for bail money online, only raising $60, mocking them. So here's another one setting the meme. Here's the guys coming to help them, the Anti-Fa responders against them. And so it's all about stoking the fire. Here's another one. This is from July 6, 2017. This is about the radical left-wing Anti-Fas taking credit for a string of attacks on fiber optic networks in the San Francisco Bay Area. See how they're priming the pump? The radical activists have cut fiber optic lines at least 12 times in recent months. The Anti-Fa is here. We're here to promote snipping fiber optic cables in order to disrupt the internet, mobile phones, and 9/11 services. Really? So this is also from Mother Jones, and I can't find the date on this, but you can see it's a Mother Jones, liberal, lefty, better dead, Hitler in the face, support your local Anti-Fa, skinhead, sharp, racial prejudice. This is war and we intend to win. Alt-right ain't right with an anarchist sign, priming the pump. And here it's lunchtime in 2012, 18 masked men. Hey, bitches, one of the anti-racists shouted before charging Spears' table. ARA is going to fuck up this place. That's the anti-race action and the Hoosier anti-race movement, or HARM, the Hoosier. Wow, is Indiana getting into this Anti-Fa, anti-race stuff? Here's some coffins, guys walking in with masks, blah, blah, blah. You get the idea. So then they're priming the pump too with Wikipedia. You can go in here, and this is a news site. I've been watching this. They've just been adding stuff, over the past 6 months or year. I wish I had taken a screenshot. But here you can see Anti-Fa is an American political movement. And here's what I found in the Atlantic.com. It might be the smoking gun, like the World Trade Center 7, when they called the downing of the World Trade Center 7 by the BBC some 25 minutes before it occurred. What do we see here? The rise of the violent left. Anti-Fa's activists say they're battling burgeoning authoritarianism on the American right. Are they fueling it instead? Notice the date, folks. September 2017. We're at August 8th, 2017. This is the September issue. Since 1907, Portland, Oregon has hosted the annual Rose, so they tie it back. This April, everything changed. Now they got a new group called the Direct Action Alliance and warn the Nazis will not march through Portland unopposed. Antifa traces its roots back to the 1920s and 30s. Now we had Germany. Now we're bringing in other countries with militant leftists battled fascists in the streets of Germany, Italy, and Spain. In the late 1980s, left-wing punk fans in the United States began following suit, though they initially called their groups Anti-Racist Action, ARA, on the theory that Americans would be more familiar with fighting racism than fascism. And there's even a book coming out by Mark Bray. We got to get it, folks. The author of the forthcoming AntiFa, the Anti-Fascist Handbook. By the 2000s, as the internet facilitated more transatlantic dialogue, some American activists had adopted the name Antifa. No, the media did. It's a freaking Jesuit creation. Let's be honest. Another meme. Trump has changed that. For Antifa, the result has been explosive growth. They now have the NYC Antifa. Do the math. By summer, it exceeded 15,000. By summer. We're still in summer. There's a September magazine. You're in the fall. But we're still in summer, and you're talking about the summer after it exceeded pastime. This is how they do it, folks. Suddenly, noted the Antifa Online Journal, it's going down. Anarchists and Antifa who have been demonized and sidelined by the wider left have been hearing from liberals and leftists, you've been right all along, and there are practical and serious responses in this political moment. No doubt, problem, reaction, solution. Here's an article from the Los Angeles Times, April 25th. University of California administration is paying excessive salaries and mishandling funds, the state audit says. The administration of the University of California pays top workers' salaries and benefits significantly higher than that of similar employees in the state. They failed to disclose the Board of Regents and public that it had $175 million in budget reserve funds while it was raising tuitions on its students, a state audit found. The audit triggered a dispute with UC President Janet Napolitano, who said charges of hidden funds were false. The audit of the president also found that it failed to satisfactorily justify its spending. It inappropriately screened surveys submitted by auditors, concludes that the Office of President amassed substantial reserve funds, used misleading budgeting practices, provided its employees with generous salaries and atypical benefits, and failed to justify its spending. Furthermore, we sought independent perspective from campuses, and the Office of President provides to them intentionally interfered with our audit process, Howell wrote. The auditor said that because of the recent tuition hikes, she recommends the Office of the President should refund available funds and reserves by returning them to campuses for the benefit of the students. And here's an article in the Los Angeles Times as well. UC Regents take steps to streamline board operations. Here you see Jerry Brown, governor, Jesuit, and Janet Napolitano, Jesuit, University of Santa Clara, former Department of Homeland Security. University of California Regents Wednesday approved a sweeping overhaul of the board, the first in 5 decades. This is July 20th, 2016, so less than 1 year ago. Also discussed continued financial challenges they say will hamper efforts to accommodate 5,000 new Cal students, despite a state funding boost. Yeah, because they're stealing all your money, folks. And also it goes down, the former regent, Velma Montoya, some UC faculty members and others had written critical articles and blogs saying the changes would diminish the regent's watchdog over the 10-campus UC system. So it's very easy to see how they were able to hide all this money until an honest state auditor brought it up.
Pay for a public school board's lavish dinners. The San Francisco Chronicle calling out University of California President Janet Napolitano for spending more than, get this, $225,000 on expensive meals. But the gravy train, it is over. The board will have to pay for themselves from now on to avoid questions. More than just questions. That's a ton of cash.
Here is from the CBS San Francisco Bay Area, January 21st, 2015, some 9 months ago. Napolitano formed 2-person advisory committee. Governor Brown and University President Napolitano have gotten a go-ahead to form themselves an intimate 2-person committee that will look at ways of resolving their standoff over state funding for higher education and the necessity of tuition increases. The 2 leaders asked fellow members of the growing governing body to name them as the sole members of the Select Advisory Committee on Cost Structure. It was a quick and unanimous vote. Governor Brown answered criticism, saying that he and the university president would have complete authority over policy changes. Regents Thursday morning, where the 2-person committee is expected to be approved, which they ended up doing. So here's the hypocrite. Brown is going to be talking to Napolitano about the budget increases. They're the only 2 on the UC Regent board. So here's the Department of Homeland Security, Janet Napolitano, going to the UC Regents board, forming a 2-man partnership to rule over all the UC systems, and they're hiding over $150 million, $145 million in funds that were kept secret that an auditor had to find out. And who did the auditor report to? Jerry Brown, the other Jesuit. So you see, they're 2 hands, two in the same pot. They're of the same team. They're just playing right and left. They're just all playing a game on us, folks. And here we have Governor Jerry Brown, and you can see these pictures of Jerry Brown. His father, Pat Brown, upset Richard Nixon to be reelected governor of California in 1962. Over here you see him with Dianne Feinstein and the next governor of California, Gavin Newsom, who went to Santa Clara Jesuit School as well and is from the Bay Area. He's lieutenant governor. Brown has had his 2nd colon cancer operation, so they just substitute in Gavin Newsom, it would seem, if that were to work. And right here you see Bill Clinton. He went to Jesuit school at Georgetown, talking to a young moonbeam Jerry Brown and flashing him the Baphomet devil signal. And if we click over here, we can see that Brown's quote, "I am applying the truth I was brought up by the Jesuits. They've worked for 400 years. Here's a picture of him with Jim Jones. Jim Jones, you may remember, was the religious fanatic who took over 800 poor people down to Guyana and with the CIA's help, murdered them all. And here's Jerry smiling with him in the People's Temple. And there's a book, Season of the Witch, that you should read about Jim Jones' infiltration into San Francisco politics. But here you can see in Jerry Brown's life, he went to Santa Clara University, Jesuit school, Jesuit seminary to become a Catholic priest, University of California, Berkeley. Here he is attending seminary school in his Catholic robes. His father's inaugurated as governor, upsets Richard Nixon. Here's Jerry meeting Pope Paul VI. So you can see this man has intimate connections. He's a Jesuit, as long as Napolitano, and they're running the show, folks. Closing this up today, there are no free speeches anymore. Your representative doesn't hear you. You can't talk to them. You go and vote, and supposedly one person makes the decision for 310 million people, and everybody's supposed to obey them because it's the law. What a bunch of crap. Free speech zones, you're a mile away from where the person you need to address is speaking, and you call them your representatives. You go and vote, and you say, oh, I have a voice in this country? No, you don't. It's slavery, folks, and they're coming for us. They're creating these memes, the LBGT, the Black Lives Matter, now the Anti-Fa, even the flat earth versus heliocentrism. They're all memes to cause conflict. They want us to war with each other. Don't do it. Love one another. Okay? Peace out. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next one.
The free speech protesters are not backing down, they're fighting back. Hey, how you guys doing? Pleasure. Love you guys. Pleasure.
So here we are. 4 students are getting the axe. 6 organizations are getting the axe for standing up this semester and for fighting for these things. They're getting the axe not for what they did, but for what we have done. They spoke for us. They were part of us. They have been singled out, and they're going to be chopped off.
We were told the following: if President Kerr to end up being bought by some clients of the university, be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone, or human beings. There's a time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart, that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Hi folks, and welcome to another video from aplaintruth.info.
Actually tried to get something more liberal out of the regents in his telephone conversations. Why didn't he make some public statement to that effect? And the answer we received from a well-meaning liberal was the following. He said, would you ever imagine the manager of a firm making a statement publicly in opposition to his board of directors? That's the answer. Well, I ask you to consider, if this is a firm, and if the Board of Regents are the Board of Directors, and if President Kerr, in fact, is the manager, And I tell you something, the faculty are a bunch of employees, and we're the raw materials. But we're a bunch of raw materials that don't mean to have any process upon us, don't mean to be made into any product, don't mean...
Their political burnings.
Standing around, not doing anything. Look at them. There's a number of riot cops here. There's clashes and fights and people getting seriously hurt and injured. But these guys are just standing there. Why are they standing there, not doing anything? There's those guys, and there's people getting seriously hurt over there. Like, this is insane. This is nuts. It makes no sense at all. I guess they want this to happen. I guess this is their bigger plan of divide and conquer, or just letting the situation get out of hand. As we're gonna go over there and show you the craziness that's happening. Again, this is Luke Radowski of WeAreChange.org, reporting to you live as real independent media, supported on patreon.com/WeAreChange.
Today is August 8th, 2017. And I wanted to be given a heads up to this new meme they're bringing out, and you can see the slow boil they're doing on it. We'll get into that in a little bit. But this was an article in the New York Times as of 2 days ago, August 4th. Front page, left-hand column, New York Times printed section, so you know it's important when they put it front page, left time, Journal of Record, the New York Times. Everything fit to print, so they say, but it's what people read, pay attention as intellectuals, and this is how they program the masses, so I just want to get into it. So behind Berkeley's semester of hate, talking about UC Berkeley, when far left meets far right, sparks fly, students from both sides discuss